men shave. Real men shave their faces. Real men shave their faces.
Good morning, Stevie Daily Shaver. You know what? This morning it's some sterling soap, Ben Franklin. It really does have... I'm trying to think. Oh, there's just something about this scent. I love it. I know that scent. It frustrates me because I know that scent. I know one of the key ingredients. The big boy also used this big sterling brush, the Kong. I think the Kong's actually the second smallest one. I'm pretty sure they brought out one that was bigger. Why you'd need anything bigger than that baffles me, but there you go. This is medium Kong, because the only person I've seen shave with big Kong was Rich. So, what's up in the world? Well, first of all, my bathroom plans have come a cropper. Not least of all, despite my begging to get help, the things that have happened. Yesterday, I thought, well, I'm finally getting on top of things. I went out to start my car. Car wouldn't start. You know the day. So you get out the RACQ, which is the roadside assistance, and they say your battery's going. Well, how much is that? Couple of $100? $350. Why? Because it's a diesel and it needs a special battery made on another planet, shipped here especially by Martians. And I'm going to go for Uber leather because I watched his video and I think Rich might know something. So that just requires Uber leather. I'm sorry about the banging. I should put my fingers down the side. It's one thing you do with this brush, otherwise it drives you bloody balmy. So Uber leather. Uber leather just means you really work the air bubbles like you're thickening. You work breaking down the air bubbles until it thickens back up, until a really thick leather. Now he was using one of the Crown Kings. I haven't got any Crown King. Douglas, it's your fault. Actually, well, I think it's being sold now. I think through. I think it might be available through Con's store. What's that? The Stray Whisker. Anyway, got Uber leather. You don't want to cheat. Just requires legwork with your hand. I'm thinking about declaring the razor, the budget razor of the year. Contenders for budget razor of the year, you'd have to be looking at ones like Maggard's, Italian Barber. Trying to think who else makes really good budget razors. I mean, these are sub $50. Into the Running would have been the One Blade, but they're pretty much still working out the kinks. Let's see, who else? But let's be honest, let's throw the Chinese in there. I think this could be a contender for 2017 budget razor of the year. Now, if you think I've missed a razor, put down in the comments and I will evaluate the comments because I don't want to go missing out on anybody. Rockwell? Well, Rockwell have got the 6C and the 6, is it the 6C, which is 2 bases, and the 6 something that's got all 3 bases. Now that is a pretty good, at $50. That is certainly in the running. So I'm fond of the Maggard V3 base, and you know I love the MR5 handle. Again, that combo under $50. This from Maggard or Amazon between $15 and $20. Let's dial it back to the base setting for pass number 1. I've not shaved in a few days, so this razor is going to be taking off a fair bit. in American politics, because our politics are boring, I noticed that the Donald Younger put up a post. The sanctions against the Russians have been passed 98 to 2. And you go, well, there you go. Bad Russians, naughty Russians, spank you on the arse Russians. But is that really why they got sanctioned? Was it because they interfered in your elections? Look, if we're going to spank someone for interfering in the bloody world, we'd be bent over America. Take one for the team. It's your turn. The Americans interfere in everybody's elections. Back during the dismissal of Whitlam in Australia, the Americans played a big part in okaying Fraser getting the nod from America to take over. You know, we didn't know a lot of that at the time. It came about 20 years later, or one of the signal operatives at Pine Gap, an Australian, who was receiving cabled information, top secret information, he squealed that there was a lot going on at that time that nobody knew about. They did not know about Fraser's meetings with the American ambassador. They didn't know about Washington having to okay it. You know, do you have American support for this coup? Yes. You know, goes to the Governor General, hides in a closet, which is kind of funny. Hides in a closet. Well, his Prime Minister Whitlam gave the old, disgusting, perverted drunk known as the Governor General, I think it was Kerr, and about a year later, Kerr turned up after all the shenanigans at the Australia's, what's that horse race? The Melbourne Cup. You can see it on YouTube. He was seriously hammered. I mean, off his face hammered. Let's go to 2.5. This is the guy that had the Queen's confidence to dismiss an elected Prime Minister. Anyway, so getting back, what are these sanctions supposed to be for? Well, you can read a lot in the news press about, you know, this and that. Let me tell you why you're spanking Russia. After World War I, America had discovered that it was sitting on a lot of oil. And you know where most of America's oil got shipped to? That's right, Europe. Particularly England, and through England into Europe. Now, you'll notice that around the 70s or 80s, all your oil wells started packing it in. And that was when the Americans, oh, got an itchy nose. That's when the Americans jumped on their planes and started buying up and doing deals for Middle Eastern oil fields, left, right and centre. And that's where you started getting coups that put shitheads like what's his name, the Shah of Iran into power. So America had control, and it's kind of like the mafia. You've got to buy our protection if you want to sell the oil. So the America was the protection if you want to buy the oil. So America did a deal with a bunch of camel-riding, bum-sucking knobs, also known as a bunch of Middle Eastern, name your general shithead. And they're still your best friends to this day. Big friends of the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons. You know, these people actually funded the education of your last president. How else would a person who never went to university or study pass? I ask you. You know, okay. So it pays off. They get themselves a president or two. Like I said, everybody interferes in everybody's elections. That's just neither here nor there. But the success that interfering has stood to come a cropper. You see, Europe needs energy. And if Europe is allowed to trade with its nearest, closest partner with ties to people in an internet age where people can talk and get on, America stands to lose its biggest customer. Now, America has decided to frack baby frack, which, you know, when the earthquakes hit, is going to suck, baby, suck. But okay, you know, you're ignoring the rumbles you got now across Middle America that never used to suffer serious earthquakes. Now getting quite measurable ones daily. So fair enough. Who are you going to sell it to? You know, there's a cheap supply coming into Europe, secure, from Russia. Well, this is where sanctions come in. Sanctions are about trade. And when it comes to trade, nobody knows how to bugger a good trade like the Americans. So never let any opportunity to go. They're going to use the Russians interfered in our elections. Russians are doing this, Russians are doing that. All that happens is Russians are protecting their Russian interests. See, it's not in Russia's interest to organise its economy around the American organised one world order. See, the idea of America is having run up this huge amount of debt to the world, along will come an opportunity which will cause a reset, which means the digital economy, etc. And with their control over central banks and central banking, it's their plan to roll out the American-backed Bitcoin 3.0, and the world will be on its economy. That's the plan. Now, if other countries trade between each other outside of the United States, in other words, if you no longer need to buy American magic beans to trade, that's pretty close. I really don't need another pass, but I'm enjoying it so much this morning, I'm going to go for another pass. Not that I need it, I'm going to be BS. Full of BS. Lots of people are going to comment. Full of BS, Steve. So the Americans actually, this is about trade. This is about making sure that the Russians don't get the hard currency they need to further improve their military. Now, funny, the military that most threatens the United States is China, but what has America done? It sails a ship near one of the disputed homemade, hey, do-it-yourself islands, and they get warned off by the Chinese, and they go, well, we showed the world that we can sail near them. Big bloody deal. The Chinese don't even blink. They go, you know, it's just amazing. So at the moment, America's bending over for China. Why? Well, China's not a net energy exporter, it is a net energy importer, so there's no way that China can supply European needs. Now, for trade, they're using their manufacturing base to build the Silk Road across the Middle East into Europe, because they've been trading back and forth across here for 5,000 years. So, and the Americans like to get in on everything, you know, you need us. So they're presently on that silk trade route. There's 100 different spots where America have their fingers in local government elections, local state elections, entire government elections, all guiding them towards American democracy. Now, American democracy means you have democracy as long as you do what America wants. If you don't do what America wants, say Australia decided tomorrow to go, F you America, where would Australia be? Well, the Americans could just basically have a quiet word in China's ear and go, you know what? They're really annoyed. It's how about you move a nice big military asset down to Indonesia? You know, just sit right on the Australian border. Our Australian politicians would shit themselves so fast that you could almost paper the diarrhea between Canberra and the American embassy for people to fall over themselves to go, oh, save us, save us, save us. And before you know it, the Americans would have probably the Northern Territory. You'd probably give them the Rock and the Aborigines as a job lot deal. I mean, and that's how things work in the world. People have friends. I have American friends. Americans have Russian friends. Russian friends have Ukrainian and Israeli friends. And those friends have Australian friends. We can all be friends when it comes to wet shaving. But nations have interests. Nations do things that don't make sense to friends. I don't want to screw over anybody. If they can get cheap oil out of Europe and there's a valid economy trade between Europeans and Russians, I'm for it. But nations don't think that way, and America doesn't think that way, because the Americans are planning 50 years in advance. And in 50 years, where are they going to be? If they're so indebted that they can't pay it back, they've gone through hyperinflation and a destroyed economy, and an emboldened Europe comes out, That's American's worst fear. I'm Stevie Daily Shaver, just explaining to you why shit happens. That was a bloody good shave on a really cheap razor. I'm Stevie Daily Shaver, wishing you all the best of shaves. Good shaves, and leave your comments below. I'm Stevie Daily Shaver, listening to everything you have to say. Good shaves and goodbye.
Bearded man, you think that you're so cool, but your face looks like a small marsupial.